And we're back, Stripe Show Podcasts. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Special one here today. As we usually don't come out on a Wednesday with the podcast, but we have to make exception today because, we got a special guest. This guy joining us from Costa Mesa, California, one of the top teachers out there and longtime coach to the most recent winner out there in Mexico, Jake Knapp. He's the guy. John Ortega, thank you for taking the time. We've got all the technical things figured out, and here we are now on the podcast together. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, first off, congratulations. I can't even imagine what it's like for you to sit there and watch someone that you've known since they were 8 years old, and you've been his teacher and guiding him along the way through grade school and high school and college golf at UCLA, Canadian Tour, Corn Ferry Tour, and now he makes it to the PGA Tour and he wins. What was that like to see that?
Well, it was really rewarding, but it was something that didn't catch me by surprise because I've always known how good he is. Mm-hmm. And so when people are going, hey, isn't this great? It is, but it isn't anything that caught me by surprise because I just know how good this kid is. And he was shooting 61 when he's in high school in competition, U.S. Open qualifying, shot 59 in a junior world qualifying. So he's been playing some really good golf for a long time. So it's kind of like one of those guys that's just a savant. And it's just a matter of time before he did this. So I wasn't surprised at all. But when it happened, of course, I was over at the Knapp's house and the watch party. I was the one that was filming the room for, what's his name? Dan Hicks, rather. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it was great, and everybody was tears in everybody's eyes, and I had to kind of maintain the composure. I'm supposed to be the cool head in the room, and I was. As soon as I hit the door, oh my God, I cried like a baby. Oh wow! So I had to go back and give some more lessons. I'm just wailing as I'm driving down to Costa Mesa, which is maybe 400 yards away from their house, and that's what it was like. I lost my shit, and but in a good way, and here we are, and it's just so awesome that. He's finally doing what I thought he'd always do. I guess, I don't know if that summates it, but that's what I feel right now. And that's what I felt then.
Those conversations after it happens, right? You I would imagine I've talked to Jake since, and you don't want to share everything. Like those moments are special, right? Between coach and player, but is there anything you can share? Like, was there that one moment in time, maybe where you go back to where maybe things weren't so good and you kind of keep going? Was there anything you could share from that conversation that you would share with us?
Sure. The first time he played in the Farmers Insurance, he was really nervous. And of course I was, but again, I try to hide that. And I don't really need to hide too much of it because I have so much confidence in him. But I feel the butterflies for him. And he said, before we went to the tee, he goes, give me something. Like, you got to say something to me to, get me calm. I said, Jake, this is what you were meant to do. This is what you're always going to do. So just go out and do what you do. And so I reminded him of that conversation. I said, and that now we're here, and this is the same thing. You're doing what you're supposed to do. There's nothing it's extraordinary, but it's what you are. That's pretty much what we had the conversation. Of course, after that, it gets a little bit more emotional. So save that between me and him.
Take us back to when you met him. As I understand, you started working with him when he was 8 years old. Take us back to those days.
Okay, the first time I saw him hit a golf ball, I can remember it like it was yesterday, really. So he and Ryan and Bob were out in the middle of the range at Costa Mesa. It was dark.
Ryan's his brother?
Ryan's his brother.
Ryan's his brother, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Ryan's Jake's older brother. So they were hitting balls at Costa Mesa off the mats. He was 8. He was tiny, by the way. He was super, super small as a kid and going into high school. So see this little kid, he's got this really nice swing, and he's hitting the ball at the center of the club face, and it's just going pretty much dead straight and falling slightly to the right. And I mean, I'm not a genius, but I can tell when there's something different. And I'm like, kid, that's unbelievable. And his dad thought I was just saying that to be nice, but I'm like, hey, I'm not saying that to be nice. I'm just saying that. I'm just pointing out that your kid's like, he looks like he's going to be pretty good at this game, right?
He's special.
So that was the first time I saw him play. And at the time, he was working with a guy named Doug Booth. And Doug ended up moving on. And so I was in the place and had good fortune to have him and Ryan, assigned to me for me to be their coach, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a lot of serendipity or good happenstance for me. And so I was in the right place at the right time, you might say. And from there, he was tiny and his swing developed a lot of it because being around his older brother, Ryan, because Ryan was a good player. And Ryan, if you saw him when they were young, and there's pictures somewhere or another, but he was really tall, Jake was really short, and Ryan hit it far and Jake didn't. And so he would always swing really hard to try to keep up with his brother and his brother's friends. So he had to swing it back really hard. And, on the backswing, he'd kind of give it like that Scottish flail thing, like where you take it back like Bobby Jones, and then it'd get past him and go, So you kind of late load it like Nicholas and got really long. And, over time, we just decided to get it like more extended too. So I have some swings that, some stills of his arms way up. And so this thing kind of developed partly out of just like it was an organic. He needed to hit it farther, and that happened. And he could hit it out of the center of the club face. And as he grew, it started going farther and farther until, like when he was a junior in high school, he's carrying the ball well over 300 yards. And I was like, why would I change that? And it's it. The rhythm that he has right now, he's had for a while. So it has really good rhythm. His swing produces good shots. And so we just managed, some things. And of course, when it comes to him and his swing, I'm pretty guarded, so I don't want to like go into the details. It's kind of, to me, it's all that's like between him and me, and whatever he does with somebody else, he generally confides in me. He says, "Hey, I've thought about doing this. What do you think?" So, and we still have those conversations, but his swing is by and large the same swing, and it's good enough swing to win on tour, and I think it's a good enough swing to win majors personally.
Do you think that, because the one thing that I love about it is kind of the length of the swing. I'm gonna put a video up here, and this is of him, and he's, this long swing, just kind of a recent one. And if you're looking at your phone there, John, it's the one where he's in his PXG hat.
Okay.
And he's dressed, and he's dressed in all black.
Okay, let me get to this phone right here. Okay, yeah, it's not a video right now.
It's just kind of a sequence. Yeah, it's a little sequence.
Yeah, okay, I see that one. I do.
And so, like, when I look at this and you look at this,
yes.
One of the things you just said to me was when he was younger, trying to keep up with his brother, trying to hit it hard, did he kind of naturally kind of get his hands up like that and the club a little past parallel to try to keep up, right? To lengthen out that swing, which I like. It's a little bit of a throwback, John. You don't see many anymore in the PGA Tour that get the club to the top, but like this, right? It's always maybe a little shorter than that, maybe parallel with the driver. But is this kind of the way that he would swing it at a young age, really wind that thing up, get it past parallel, kind of like you said, load it late, and then just sling that thing through to create max speed?
Always.
Yeah.
That's why when I was sending you all those videos, I said the song remains the same. It's that, so it's just something that's a natural swing.
Right.
And I think I'd have been a fool to try to mess with it too much. I mean, there are other people that I coach that I don't coach like him. So, people ask me how I coach. I'm going to say I just look at somebody and see what I think they should do to be a better golfer. As vague as that sounds, that's how I do it. And so, yeah, he's been doing that for a long time, and he's been playing really good golf since he was young. And I just think it's a matter of him just making his way out there, which he's already doing, and just going out and doing what he's always done, which is play good golf in tournaments. He's got that chip that he can go really low, and that's something I don't think that you can teach. That's something you're born with. I don't think there are too many people that can make 7, 8 birdies and look for 9, 10, 11, 12, and he's that guy.
So go back to his high school days. He went to Estancia, right? There,
right.
Estancia High School. Then he went to UCLA. So you go back to his high school days and then into college. That's a conversation. I've taught a lot of junior golfers that make that jump, right? That are really good high school players. They want to play collegiate golf. And sometimes when they make that jump into college, it's a learning curve, right? As much off of the golf course as it is on. Talk about Jake. Was there, that transition from playing at Estancia where he obviously was a very good player, then to becoming a freshman at UCLA? Was there, learning curves for him, things that as he kind of got on his own, maybe in managing his swing or managing his time on and off the golf course? What was that like in coaching him?
Well, when he went to college, college golf, as you may know, a lot of the college golf coaches want their kids to be real consistent. So they kind of like the 69 through 72s. They don't want the 65s and the 75s. So his game changed a little bit at that point. So he learned how to play, he called it aggressively conservative. To me, that made no sense for him. It's like, dude, just put the pedal down the metal and shoot some low scores. But, he has to do that now because the PGA Tour's courses, they have some difficulties. He'll have to play safe at times. But I love when he just plays all out. He's amazing. But so he had to learn a different style of golf to accommodate that environment, I guess you could call it. And so, that there was a learning curve in that, because before he used to just play completely free. It was like, who cares? The flag there, I'm here, my ball's going to the flag. Then he had to start playing more toward the center of the green, which is, I guess that's long term. That's a good way to play. I mean, if you look at the strokes gained and Mark Brody and all the different things, decade and all the things that they recommend, he had to change his style of play that way. So I would say that was the biggest adjustment for him. And just being away from home and being away from me, and being away from, obviously his parents, that was, wasn't easy for him. But he's the kind of kid, even though he's very engaging and gregarious, he's also a little bit of an introvert too. So he can be on his own, he can travel, he can be in his own hotel room. He can do all of that. And so he's like perfectly suited to be a tour professional golfer. So I just, I want to bring that up because I think that people that are out there that look at some of these guys that have to do what they do, I mean, they've got to go out there. And I've traveled with him, wake up early in the morning, have to have canceled second rounds and have to go and finish their round, and they finish their round and have a long day. He's up for that. That's what he lives for. So, all of those things that he did in college and in his early training or traveling as a professional golfer is, brought him to the point where he's good at doing all of that. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, were there moments of setback, or maybe, like you had some conversations, right? Golf's tough, golf can beat you down. So take me to those moments where, things were not as easy, right? He wasn't just firing at the flagstick. Golf was a little bit more difficult. Were there some late night calls where you had to say, man, this is just part of the deal?
Yes, there were, especially when he was in Canada the first time around, because he didn't, it wasn't like an instant success up there. So he'd, tell me, hey, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, my swing feels like this or that, do I need to change it? And I'm like, no, sometimes the moment will make you, not move with the best efficiency that you could, but eventually your nervous system will get used to it and you'll, restore or reset. And so we kind of had those conversations. Every once in a while, not every once in a while, a lot of times he'd send me videos. And if I did see something that I thought he could do a little bit better, I'd make a comment. But we did have some of those conversations. But I think what you're speaking of, the biggest moment like that was when he, the wraparound Corn Ferry season that they had, the 2-year COVID season, when he didn't play particularly well there, and he lost his playing privileges on the Corn Ferry Tour. He had to go back to Canada. At the same time, he lost his sponsor, and he's like, man, look where I am. I'm like, well, you're going to figure it out. I was totally convinced he would, but I was prepared to just help him any way I could. But he's a tough, resilient kid. So as everybody's talking about the bouncer thing, but he did Uber. He did what he had to get by, let's say. But I think that those moments made him who he is now. And he really appreciates, and he talks about it. He appreciates what he gets to do for a living. We had some conversations. I'll keep them a little bit private, where I kind of cracked the whip a little bit, and not a lot. My whip has like a velvet tip, but I did crack it, and so I'm made him realize that, hey, this is your opportunity. You can't take this lightly, and you're that guy that if you actually grab hold of the moment, that you're gonna get what you wanted and what we've all wanted for you, and he did. So we're there, and we're just gonna ride it.
It's so funny. Like, I talk to a lot of coaches, and we have a lot of coaches that listen to the pod. We have a lot of, our audience is widespread. A lot of people listen. They have kids that play golf, good golfers, want to pursue golf, maybe play professional golf or work in the golf industry, maybe become a teacher like you or I. And the reality is, like, when you play and you work through those different moments in time, right? Like your grade school and then your high school and then your college and then your mini tour. Things get more difficult as you go. And sometimes they don't go the way you want them to go, right? Like you can dominate at a young age, and in high school the competition isn't such. Then you go to college and you have maybe a coach that is going to give you more structure on a daily basis, and you got to kind of follow his lead, and he wants you to play a certain way. And then you go to the Canadian tour, and all of a sudden that's a whole different environment in the way now you're traveling, and it's your job, and people around you are as good as you, right? And have won some of the same tournaments that you've won in the past in California. So it gets more difficult, and you get knocked down. And sometimes, in talking with parents and kids, like, it's like, this is part of it. Like, it's not always win, 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 unless you're Tiger Woods, I guess. But even him, you're going to have some setbacks. And so those moments in time become, I just look back and I feel like, maybe the most important moments, right? When you kind of help him through those struggles, like you said, in losing his card and his sponsor, to get back on the horse and let's keep going, because you are good enough, and we'll get there. It's just, this is just part of the journey. Yeah,
for sure. And I think intuitively he knew that, but like when you're going through it, it just sucks.
Yeah.
You want it to end, but you're the only one that can make it end, and he did. I'm just watching what he's done. I've learned. I haven't really had this kind of talent and this kind of perseverance in front of me, this kind of athleticism. So just being part of that experience has helped me a lot. I know this is all about him, but I was telling you, just being able to be who I am for him, it's just like.
Do you think? Let me ask you this. John. Do you think the start that he had on Sunday, right? He hits it in the water, and he makes a couple bogeys, right? And so all of a sudden, he's playing golf like he hadn't played up to that point. Do you think all the things that you go through in time, right? And you get to that moment and you have a chance to win, and all of a sudden you face a little adversity, right? All of a sudden I hook one into the water.
Right.
Like all those moments it wasn't easy for him on Sunday, but the perseverance, like it just kicked in, and he all of a sudden off you went again.
I think that what you talked about before, all those things he went through and all the experience he's had in pushing through these tough times, from a living your life standpoint to being on the golf course and pushing through some rounds where you're not hitting it as well as you are. They all contributed to him being able to do that. But his character and his grit, that's hard to teach. And he's got that. So when I look at a golfer and I look at guys that, people that are talented and, that they maybe have the game to do what he's doing, that's a big part of somebody being successful. And I think that's really underappreciated. And I don't take it for granted. And, when I see it, I really appreciate it. And, he's one of those guys that I've seen him make some pars and bogeys that are like unbelievable. I could, sometime when we have some time, I'll tell you some of the holes he's played that people have scratched their head and they go, how the hell did he do that? And I'm like, well, I'm not surprised because he's done it a bunch, right? So he's that guy. So when he was in that moment where, I was on the putting green giving a putting lesson. I'll tell you some of the circumstances behind this. There's like the first 3 holes he was playing when all that's happening. Guys are saying, fuck this guy. Sorry about that. I don't know if F's are. So he goes, fuck this guy. He's falling apart. He's like, he's gonna come apart like a cheap suit. And I just had to stand there and go, oh God, I have to hear this. And I just knew somehow he was gonna make it through. And I'm like, all right, they're gonna be eating their words, and they did. So but he's that guy that he can just, he's not gonna do it every time, right? Not everybody's gonna like have their B game and win. But he's one of those guys that can, and he's proved it, and I think he'll show it again and again.
Yeah, that's the special part. That's the lasting power, right? When you don't have your A game, and yet you're right there competing tooth and nail to the end. And he got the win, which was pretty awesome. And I was thumbing through some of these videos that you sent me, and I got the one up with the bucket hat. This is probably, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, maybe, and it's a little more of a kind of a 3/4 sawed off wedge. It's not an all out drive or an all out 6-iron. It was one that kind of stood out to me where it looked like he was trying to flight it, and maybe he did take it back a little bit more 3/4, but my goodness, I just look at this golf swing. I look at the way he uses his body, the kind of change in knee flex, obviously the structure in the arms and hands, and letting it lengthen out when he needs it with the driver, but then has the ability to shorten it up a little bit, hit the flighted shot when he needs to. I mean, technically, this swing is so good. I mean, it really is. And I tell you, John, I think it's a swing. And I told Dana Dahlquist this too, and I want to get to him here in a minute, because you were telling me some stories about Jake getting some other thoughts from other teachers. And I think there's a really good conversation to have there. But I just look at this swing, and I think it's such a great swing for my audience to look at and learn, like the fullness of the turn, the lengthened out nature of it, the club face being so square, the shaft, just laying down a little bit, not crazy, and just great body support, weight left turning. It's just very clean in many, many ways. But I think the thing that stands out to me is just that it's lengthened out. I like that. I've never been one to let's shorten things up. Let's make it more compact and shorten it just because maybe it looks better and it maybe sounds like it'd be more efficient. I think it's cool that you let this kind of breathe, the length of this swing over the years, because that's what really stands out to me.
Yeah, I never, there were times where people said, I think you should shorten this swing. And I even during the tournament, guys were sending me, one guy sent me a YouTube video about what he needs to do for his golf swing to shorten it. And I said, oh man, I'll get right on that, man. I just thanks for the tip, right? And I'll leave the guy nameless, but it was hilarious.
No.
Super cool guy. And so I get comments like that, but it's okay.
Fantastic.
Okay. I'm sure you've probably heard some of this stuff from other people on people that you coach, right? So I'll just have to, okay, we're all good. That's fine.
I don't think I've never heard that. Never heard that.
You haven't heard anybody say shorten the swing?
No. I've never heard someone sending you a video telling you how to shorten his swing.
Oh no! Oh, it's hilarious. I'll share it with you later.
Please do.
I just don't want you to share it with everybody else, because I don't want to get guff like that. But there are a lot of well-wishers, and Jake has like a lot of fans. Because he's just such an engaging kid. It's hard not to like this guy. There are other guys on the top 100 that are right now playing. They've played better golf over time, but save a few. He's the kind of guy that people can get behind. He's kind of like a John Daly with 8% body fat. Everybody likes him, right? And he's and one thing that people don't really appreciate is how good his hands are. They are ridiculous. If you get to see him chip and putt, it's like unbelievable. So final round when he wasn't hitting it quite so good, I mean, you saw it. He wasn't gonna not get up and down. That was just not going to happen. And there might have been one time that he didn't. I don't know. I'm a little numb. I've been not sleeping very well because I'm building a new putting lab. It's going to be the lab that Jake built, I guess. But his short game's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so good, and his length kind of overwhelms that, or overshadows it. But he's got a good game, tee to green. He's got, like you said, he can do those 3/4 swings. He can do all kinds of things. I had him play up at a place called Glendora Country Club in Glendora, California, with a guy that I was trying to get him to sponsor him. And when he watched him play, he was like, I've never seen this before. I've played here for 50 years. I've never seen a ball here. I've never seen a person hit a shot like that. He hit this 8-iron that he must have curved like 50 yards, like he needed to slice it. I've never seen that before. So he's like, so it's, I know I'm biased because he's, I never had kids, and he and Ryan are kind of like my kids, but he does some things with a golf club and a golf ball that very few can do, and I'm super. I just love watching him play golf. I mean, anybody who hasn't seen him play golf, it's an adventure. Sometimes when it's like what was on Sunday, it's an adventure, but when it's not an adventure and it's just like A to B and he's on, it's something to watch.
I've got his putting stroke up here, and for my audience, I mean, John, you're a great teacher in all facets, but you really have done some incredible things in putting. You know, that's, I know, is very much your wheelhouse. And so I put Jake's putting stroke up here now, the one that you sent me.
Yeah.
And talk to me about what we're looking at here with his putting stroke, and maybe, you know, is this something that he's always done pretty naturally, or have you changed this maybe more than, say, some of the short game techniques or full swing techniques that we were talking about?
Well, by and large, just the way that he goes about, like, seeing how he's going to putt, and then the way he feels the green's been the same. But you know, we work with some technology, and so, you know, we look at the lines that his stroke is creating, and over time we've reduced the amount of you know, he's a little bit in to out sometimes, and so we reduced that where it's a little bit more, you know, on the line, but not completely. Yeah. I think it's a fool's errand to try to be zero. So, but he gets closer to that, and you know, he's really good with managing the face rotations. Some of the kids that I've coached have a lot of face rotation, and they putt well. So I try to get people to do what they do, and if they need a little bit of help in softening some element of it, like there's not a huge name dropper, but I'll do it since we're on this podcast. A girl named Haley Borja. I don't know if you watched the US Women's Am, but a friend named Bob Laskin sent her to me because she was hitting her putts left. And I gave her some ideas about how not to do that, how to train to, you know, get her start lines improved. And, you know, I just, you know, her stroke pretty much remained the same, just a little bit of an idea of how not to close the club face so much and going through the ball. She putted well. So his stroke, you know, it's been by and large his stroke, but we do a little bit of maneuvering or softening certain parts of it. But like I said, he's just such an intuitive golfer that, you know, sometimes, you know, I'm not right on the green with him to see, but I would imagine sometimes he has a right to left. He might have a little bit of a right path and, you know, hedge a little bit to make sure the ball starts a little bit more right. If it's a left to right putt, he might go a little bit more left to hedge a little bit so it starts out a little more left. I don't know. I'm not the worm cam right behind him.
Yeah.
But I know that when he's putting well, he's a pretty good putter. As you saw on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. So I think he was, they said he was 100% from 5 foot in, and he was like 80% plus from like 6 to, I forget what the distance was, but when he's stroking it well, he's a good putter. Very good.
Is he it's almost like a, I don't know, like a mini golf swing. It's like a mini Jake swing, you know, especially like, you know, from 25 feet, you know, when the stroke's got a little length, it looks like a little subtle pivot. It looks like it has a lot of the same, I don't know, kind of rhythm tendencies to it. It just, it almost looks like a mini version of his swing when he's putting in many ways.
I would say, yeah. I never really thought of it that way personally. I just know that, like, he and I putted a lot together, and you can ask him. I've got a winning record at 21 on him, so. But he's beating me now. So if he doesn't beat me now, then we have some problems. But there was a time when I don't think he was practicing his putting enough, and he's really taking it to heart to practice putting. So when he gets in those situations where he needs to make a putt, like on the final hole at Torrey, he had to make that whatever it was, and that, you know, put a lot of money in his bank account. And then in this tournament, he had to make all those par putts. And so, you know, his stroke is, I would say, you know, now that you mention it, it's kind of an extension of the way he plays golf. But the place he plays from in his brain is so natural, and so, you know, it's macro. It isn't too micro. And that's why I've been really protective of anybody that tries to, you know, offer something that's too micro. Because a guy that's an athlete like him that plays the way he plays, you know, he needs to be, I think, in my opinion, he needs to be careful he doesn't get too micro. But yeah, he's got a great
bogged down on a position or a you know, a graph or a, you know, a number, you know, like, you know, where you start getting too maybe in depth like that, which is a segue I want to take here, because you were mentioning too before we came on some of the other teachers maybe that he got a thought from here or there through this journey. Most recently, and I spoke to Dana Dahlquist, and, you know, Dana helping him just with some of the things with the fairway finder, you know, with the driver. and maybe some of those things that might help. But over the years, including Dana now, how have you, because you're the head coach, but yet you've given Jake some leeway to seek some other opinions. How do you manage that, or how have you managed that, I should say, over the years?
When he was really young, I told him, I said, I don't know everything. I know a lot, but I know everything. And you're going to want to, at some point, get some other opinions. And so I'm encouraging you to do that. But, I'd caution you to, not do any wholesale changes. And so usually when he does go out, he'll go, hey, I talked to so-and-so, and they thought it would be a good idea for me to do whatever, X, Y, or Z. And I'd either say, okay, why don't you try it out, see how you like it, see if you can do it under the gun. And there have been times where he told me what somebody tried to tell him to do, and I lost my shit. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. So that's how I kind of manage it. I don't own him. Like a lot of people, when they hear the way I've kind of interacted with that, what you're talking about, they go, why would you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just me, and I don't own him. And he's an intelligent, intuitive golfer. He's going to figure out what he wants to do. Yeah. And so, like a lot of times I hear people say, my players. I'm like, that you own him? No. It's like he's a player that I have the privilege of coaching, and I'm always going to keep it that way. It's always centered around him and his success. A lot of people don't know I've been his coach for so long. It's been, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but just the way it's played out. But I guess now people are knowing, and that's okay. I like it. A little bit of recognition. I'm not going to lie, it feels good, but it's not really what motivates me, and that's not what anything that I've really sought. That's why people, I don't know, they say, why don't you have a swing on social media? It's like, well, I've done a lot of the things that I've done with calculated, let's just say. Yeah. And things are going pretty good. So I think my calculations were pretty good.
I think your calculations are pretty good, John. You're doing just fine and helping a lot of people. And I think what's interesting there is that you're letting him be him, right? You're letting him, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what I'm hearing you say as a coach, right? Is you're letting him discover, and he's gonna, his mind, maybe I want to talk to this person or talk to this person whenever. It's not like he's doing it every week, right? I mean, it's just occasionally maybe get a thought here on something. And you're the head coach and you give him your honest assessment of what he's saying to you, but it's, he's the president of his, business, right? And so he has to make the decision, but you're going to give him your thought and you're going to give him exactly what you think of it. And sometimes it might be, that makes sense. That might fit. Or other times it's like, hell no, I would not do that.
Yeah. And I've always thought that would be the best way. And like I said, I think it's been effective so far, and I'm just going to keep riding it.
That's the growth, right? Like, it's like, I have a couple young kids and you want to let other people coach them in different sports. And sometimes they're going to say something to them in a way that maybe I wouldn't, and it might hit them a little differently, but that's just all part of growth, right? And helping them kind of discover, and mature through life, because those are the things that happen. Final question here is, we talked about some of the setbacks, right? And, you cracking the whip here and there. He's also had obviously a ton of success, and through success from an amateur standpoint and now professionally, that can offer its own challenges too, in just its natural human nature way. Were there moments like up to this point, take me to him shooting 61, 63 to win a tournament. He's playing great golf. Were there moments of, hey, let's reel it back down. Be careful. You don't want to get overconfident. Were those moments the other ways also?
Well, as far as the overconfidence one, we used to poke fun at him a little bit. It was a loving nickname. We called him Biggie because we said he's big time. He's big time in us. He Muhammad Ali says, it ain't bragging if you can back it up, right? So he walked around with a little bit of swag, but he deserved it. If you're good, you're good, and that's great, right? But as far as him, when things weren't going well, him thinking he needed to change his swing or he wasn't enough, we'd have to slap it on the side of the head and just, stop it? Don't wallow that you know better. I know better. We all know better. So we bring him back pretty fast. It didn't take much pointing that out. You know, he knows that. So we're all good when it comes to that. It doesn't take too long to bring him back. That's the other thing. He'll have these moments where he gets down on himself, and then he'll do something where he goes, I'm good. You know, so he corrects really, really fast. And I think that's a good trait to have as a professional golfer, any kind of golfer, anybody, any discipline, because you're going to have your disappointments, and then it's how you react that's going to determine your success.
Well, it's a cool story. I mean, it really is. You know, I just love the fact that you've been with him since he was 8. You know, I love the journey of golf, you know, from grade school days to high school to college, mini tour struggles. I just love the perseverance. And I think that's the word as I listen to you talk, as I listen to Dana talk, like this kid has perseverance. He's tough. Like he will fight. And that is a quality, like you said, I'm not sure you can teach. I think the other side of him, and I've never met Jake, but he just, there's an authenticity here as well. Right. And I think that's where people are gravitating, is he's very authentic, and I don't feel like he's selling me anything. I just feel like he's Jake Knapp.
Yeah. I think I sent you a video when he was playing in a Pro-Am at the Korn Ferry Finals, and he's reading the putts for these guys. When they first teed off, you know, they hadn't heard of him, right? He's a Korn Ferry guy, right? And as they went, these guys fell in love with him. He's like, this kid, he's awesome. He hits the ball awesome. He's a great player. But more than that, he cares about us. He gives us reads. You know, he gives us feedback. You know, they ask him about their swings, and he'll tell them, you know. So he's there's nothing phony about him. He's just a really high character person, and people love him. I mean, when he's up in Canada, when he played the first RBC, you know, people were just following him. They go, man, this Knapp, you know, it's like, they're drawn to him. It's really cool to see, and I can see why. You know, he's somebody that has that star quality. When Brian met it from the first time he saw him hit a golf ball, he goes, you know, when you see somebody that's kind of a star, you'll just know it. And he goes, that kid's a star. And even though that's before he won a Canadian Tour event. And by the way, Brian came out, and then Jake goes out and wins the next 2 out of 3 Canadian Tour events, right? Because Brian just told him, hey, kid, your swing's really good. If you change it, you're out of your mind, right? So he didn't really tell me anything different. He just said, keep doing what you're doing. In fact, you know, I don't think I've ever paid for a lesson that Jake's taken from somebody else, but I paid for him to take a lesson from Brian Manzella, because, as you know, Brian is like an amazing swing coach. He's like, he's a good friend. I mean, a lot of people, our personalities are about as 180 as you could be. And so you're like, what the, you know, I'm like, hey, I just get him, and I love him. He's just a good, really good friend. He's been a really good supporter. And you know, even though I'm a little bit older than him, you know, he's been a good mentor to me to say, hey, you gotta be a little bit more this way. You know, so he says, you gotta be a little less humble. You know, you're pretty good at what you do. And I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll puff out my chest now and then, but it's going to go back down pretty fast, because I just
well, I agree with that. I know Brian, I can hear that coming out of his voice. And I agree with that. So hopefully today with the podcast, John, you know, this will shine some light back to you there at Costa Mesa. You've done great work for years, and it's a cool story. You know, congratulations on all the work with Jake Knapp, and you'll be in my neck of the woods, it sounds like, here in a couple weeks here at the Players. So I'd love to have you come out on Tuesday night, show you the studio, and have something to eat and a drink and just chill out for a while.
Sounds like a plan. I'm there.
All right, man. Thanks so much for jumping on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.